GenAI will be something that stimulates us to improve. Because if I come with an idea that also a computer can come up to with, then, well, I need to work harder. I need to, that's the starting point. And from there, I can rework.
Hi, I'm Greg Stuart, CEO of MMA Global, the international nonprofit trade association for CMOs who are focused on architecting a new future of marketing.
I'm Rex Briggs, an author, market researcher, measurement inventor, and entrepreneur.
Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Stuart, CEO of MMA Global, international nonprofit industry body for CMOs who is architecting a new future of marketing.
I'm Rex Briggs, an artificial intelligence researcher, author, and entrepreneur, and this is Decoding AI for Marketing.
We affectionately like to call it sometimes DAM for short, but that's just because, Rex, I don't know if you saw this. Homer Simpson came out, I think, at one point. He was only going to type Y and N, not yes or no, right? He could, instead of typing all, because it would improve his productivity by plus 50%. That was kind of his thing, or double his productivity by just shortening those. So I don't know. Maybe that's why we use DAM. I don't know.
Damn, that's a good idea. Between the two of us, we have many decades of experience in the marketing world. And for me in particular, it's been 30 years since I first started using machine learning and neural networks.
Yeah, and listen, the point here on this show is we want to get away from some of the hype, although, a little bit of that might seep in, and really talk to the industry leaders, especially marketing heads like we're going to do today, maybe a few academics along the way, you name it, in order to be able to understand really who is advancing marketing through AI and what changes do we think that AI is going to have for marketers, which are extensive. Although I think today's guest is going to be maybe a little hesitant, so we'll see.
So Greg, I'm going to start with the iconic ad from VW that we all know, the lemon ad for Volkswagen. So I'll ask you, what was so magical about it?
Listen, it was very funny. In fact, I got into the business by reading David Ogilvy's books. I saw that. I saw this kind of advertising, the conversation that existed about VW during the sort of height of creative. It was the age of creative in around the 60s or so. But what that was is it was like intuitive. It's not what you expected. And I'm not even sure you've seen, Rex, but there was a series of other headlines they did. And I know this because my family owned a lot of Volkswagens, which is another whole funny side story. But it says, it's ugly. Like this is the headline. It's ugly, but it gets you there. Okay. The other one was, if you run out of gas, it's easy to push. I mean, these do not feel like headlines to sell cars, and yet, Volkswagen did an amazing job here in America and beyond. So,
yeah, I remember the one where it was a lot of white space in this tiny little
car,
Volkswagen
right.
Beetle Bug, and it really it broke the mold in many ways, right? And I think that's something that makes great marketing and advertising is when you go outside of the formula, you surprise people. You get their attention. Maybe you knock them off their feet. It's memorable. And it's that ability to do something that Carlo Ferrari says AI just can't do. He's a bit of a skeptic, so it'll be fun for you to spar with him because I know you have some different points of view. I might actually agree with him on some of these points, by the way. But
okay, well, fair enough. Well, listen, let's bring him in. So listen, with us today is Carlo Ferrari, who is the global content lead at Sanofi Consumer Healthcare. Hey, Carlo, how you doing?
Hello, everyone. Great. All great. Thanks for having me today.
Good, and as we talked about earlier, you're in London. Actually, Rex is closer to the West Coast. He's Denver. I'm in New York, and you're in London today, right? We're all over the place.
Exactly. First global call. Can we say so?
Yeah. I think this is our first global one. I don't know exactly where this will air in the thing, but I think it's going to be our first global. So, hey, Carlo, just maybe a little sort of kind of get started, introduce yourself to the listeners. How did you get into marketing in the first place?
Well, I got into marketing in the first place because I really didn't know what to do. I liked advertising, but I didn't know how to get there. And I had a little bit of a journey. And then I ended up now where I'm in the world of content. I've done a lot of social media influencers, but now I'm expanding my realm towards a bit more also advertising as well. And it's pretty exciting. And now the two sexiest letters in this word are AI. And when AI will get to the level of think small, then I will be seriously worried about it. And it's my favorite ad. I mean, it's so genius. And I'm a bit provocative on AI, despite working on it, with it, about it, thinking of it on a daily basis. So it's an interesting one.
Tell me a little bit more about what your day-to-day entails. What's a day in the life for you?
So Sanofi is a pharma company, and I'm in charge of all the content, so owned media, of its consumer healthcare space. So everything that you can see that we can advertise. So nothing around vaccines, oncology, but allergy, digestive wellness, pain care, and all that stuff. And so this is kind of my framework. What I do is I support our brands in developing content on our websites, on our social media, on our paid media, and on campaigns for all our brands, for all our global brands. And there are some industry leaders like Allegra in the UK, in the US. There are brands that are very famous in other countries like Doliprane, which is a pain care brand in France. So there is basically a bit of everything. And my day-to-day is about supporting the brands in creating some content that goes above and beyond that all kind of pharma conception where everybody is very, let's say, it's a bit conservative. There are a lot of regulations. You don't really want to push the boundaries. We're trying to move away from it and become literally a fast-moving consumer goods company. And so being sexier. And I believe that advertising is the way to get there, and creativity is the way to get there.
So with that point about creativity, confirm or deny this statement: AI is setting a low bar for marketers and creatives.
I mean, if you now AI gets every marketer at the same starting point, and to gather information, to check if we rely a lot also on agencies. We partner with a lot of big creative agencies around the world. And sometimes when we get out the brief, the first thing I do is to check what AI gets us on the same brief. And I'm expecting the agency to come with options that A, are different, and B, are better. Because otherwise, literally a robot could do our job, and that's not what we really want. And not just from a very conservative point of view, but really to push the boundaries of creativity and to create an emotion to our consumers. I'm Italian, so emotions play a big part of the role.
But Carlo, that doesn't sound like a pharmaceutical company, by the way. I don't think I would have heard that kind of language. They tend to like to keep you a little sort of contained, painting inside the lines, maybe, so to speak. So I don't know. I guess why are you looking at it different? And did they, should they have hired an Italian to do this job then? I don't know. I wonder about
Carlo
that. Right?
Cannot be contained.
I will be fustigated after this interview. So.
No, we're not here to cause trouble. Well, but no, what do you? I mean, why you're really pushing creativity? Maybe give an example about the things that you aim for, how you work with your team to maybe do that, just so people have an anchor what you're saying around that.
So let's say that I'll be very operative, and I hope that everybody can get this example. So when we work on social media, a lot of the content that we used to create on social media was not social media native content, but were just cuts of the campaigns that we shot for TV. So now what we enter into a new routine of building content that is native for the channel. And it's we are far from being Unilever or such great companies and that are leaders in that space. We still have a huge way to go. But we're trying to evolve that. And we're trying to be relevant to our consumers on all the spaces, on all the channels, with the right tone of voice.
But you want to be, it sounds like you want to be different, and you want to be like, you're aspiring to that Volkswagen. And the challenge with large language models is that they're specifically designed to predict the next word. They're specifically designed for coherence so that you get what you expect. And that kind of runs counter to your idea of doing something surprising. Now, I think it's possible to kind of move the levers a little bit on how things are weighted. There's a temperature score, for example, in OpenAI systems, so you can get something that's more emotional or more emotive. But it sounds like that you're struggling with that limitation, and that's some of your critique or concern, or tell me more about that.
So, well, the campaign level, the big idea level, is managed by a manager and a very high chain of commands, and they work directly with agencies. I'm much involved into the day-to-day, in the social media, and something a bit more below the line. But when it's about creating assets that have that, and I apologize for the overused word, but like that is disruptive or that can be surprising, GenAI usually is not the best way or not the easiest route to follow. I found GenAI excellent in building a content calendar, in doing the very boring part of the job that helps me remember all the nuances, all the parts that I don't really like doing, and they take away a lot of time. But when it comes to the last mile, when it comes to creating an emotion in our consumers, or a connection that is human, then is where the human side must step in. And I believe that GenAI is not at that level quite yet.
So, Carlos, what you're doing, are you kind of focused? So, listen, I think, I don't know that Rex and I would dramatically disagree with your point that, it's just going to give you what the world has already agreed is okay. And you're asking for it to go beyond what the world knows today. Okay. So I guess maybe I'd ask you, and listen, we can certainly talk about AI's efficiencies. I think we'll probably, we should spend some time on that, assuming that's partly why you're doing it. But I think the key question here maybe for the listeners today is, do you think it can at some point go to the next level? Do you think there's a way to, Rex mentioned a trick there that might help adjust that. Do you see a world that it does get there? And also, too, it's recognizing it's changing pretty dramatically, pretty quickly,
It's changed at a speed that is really incredible, and it's amazing to see this progress. I think that if we would ever get to the stage where a campaign where generative artificial intelligence could surprise us, probably we would have tamed it before, because we like this still to be a bit controlled. So I don't think we will get up to there. I don't really think that. I think that the human connection will always have the last mile, the privilege on the last mile. But it depends where we set the last mile to be. We can push the boundaries, and it's great to do on a day-to-day side with GenAI.
So it never becomes creative.
It never becomes creative in a way that can surprise you. Creativity is, I think, it's being counterintuitive. It's like those Diesel Jeans campaign that said "Be stupid." Okay, it's now GenAI could create something like this because it could be based upon something that already existed. But will they be able to deliver the next thumb-stopping, groundbreaking creativity?
Rex, I don't know. So Rex, what do you think? You're the guy who knows the tech. Is it going to happen?
I think it's such an interesting debate point. I mean, really what we know about large language models is they're good at interpolating. They're not great at extrapolating. But, you can train large language models to tell dad jokes, and a joke inherently is based upon that element of surprise, and it gets decent at dad jokes. But you raise a really interesting point, which is we don't want a lot of our large language models to be completely surprising. It would not be good if you asked your favorite agent to help book a trip to New York, which I have to do next week, and
That's
instead
like the machines
Havana.
run amok. They say, yeah, you need time in Florida,
don't
buddy.
Surprise me. Yeah, exactly. I've seen your stress levels. I'm making this decision for you.
I'm going to rearrange.
Surprise.
You shouldn't be going to New York. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that you're right, but you're also really fascinating because the research on the human brain through some work at Stanford with music showed that our brain delights when the drum beat doesn't fit the same pattern, when there's a note that's off of where what we expected it to be. And so I think you're onto something, which is that is that human part to be able to surprise and delight that maybe still keeps some of those human jobs around for a while. But I do think that you might be able to program, if you train it with enough, just like you can train it with jokes, it might learn to be able to do those things that surprise us in ways that we don't expect it to do today.
I'm sure. And I believe this will help us collectively just become better. Because at this stage, we can't, GenAI will be something that stimulates us to improve. Because if I come with an idea that also a computer can come up to with, then I need to work harder. I need to, that's the starting point. And from there, I can rework. And I love technology and I love innovation because it makes us, it takes everything to a different level. And it can take us to a better level. And we might be able to have something that surprises, but would surprise us today in 2023. Maybe we have next year, but maybe next year we are thinking already in a different way.
Right. When they released ChatGPT 6, which I've not even heard about yet. I think just 5 is coming next. Hey, Carlo, a little bit, what are you doing internally? So, I mean, is AI infused in everything that you're doing across everything, content? Are there limitations to that? How have you started to operationalize it? Start to tell us about how you're trying to make it work. You know, because listen, everybody's here listening to hear how is somebody else trying to make it happen so they can somewhat follow suit.
We work in a heavily regulated industry. All of our content gets checked not only on a very thorough way from our medical, legal, and regulatory teams, but quite often it also gets checked by Ministry of Health or external boards. So we live in an environment where creativity is hard to push because of its natural boundaries, because it's still considered by few people that work in it, but mostly from the outside of the world, it's still considered pharma, despite we're moving out from this idea. And the fact is that we have also regulations that recommend us not to input too much of our data into these models. So when working, I wouldn't be able to ask to the model to calculate, I don't know, the gross margin if I put in some sales data, because it's not something that we want to share with a model that is where its privacies and legal boundaries are still, don't want to say unknown, but still to be debated and to be fully discovered. So there are some limitations that we are forced with. On an operative base, it's still great for ideation, for storyboarding. So, and it's a day-to-day use of it that can improve, that can help us think about something better. And usually we must not use brand names. We must not share any sensible data, and it's very important that we keep it separate. So if I need to have thinking about something, for content calendar idea, I'm going to do it with my personal laptop, with my personal account, not mentioning any of the brand, not mentioning any specificity that could be.
It's interesting how conservative companies are, because for the most part, the large language models have been clear that even in the public version, they are not using the chats themselves to train themselves. Of course, when we saw that, Google accidentally released a bunch of the chats that had been shared with other people, and they ended up in search engines. And then, they very quickly pulled that back and said that was a mistake, accident, sorry. So I understand you being careful, but the general policies that I'm seeing in a lot of large corporations is bringing a large language model in-house in your own server so that you can do more of that work. Is that been part of the discussion, or is that something that you're advocating so that you can lean more into it? Because it seems like you guys are being kind of held back from the legal compliance people that are afraid of the unknown.
Well, I think that they're really just doing their job. So
it's their job to be afraid.
But Carlo, what are you doing though? I don't think I'm still clear on exactly what you are doing. So are you just using ChatGPT to supplement your work? Have you built an LLM in-house that you can sort of really run copy through it? Is this a machine? Yeah, where are you going?
I'm using it to supplement my work, and not even always. And a lot of the, so whenever it's about going to details about product names or sensitive data about our products or about our brands, I'm leaving that part out just because that's what the regulations are. I think that building an internal model would really help us play in a safer space, because even not just when it's about pure creation, but even when it's about checking that some data is correct for starting from some sources, or because every content that we can create must be related to a scientific source. So everything that we say is in fact scientifically true, and so there is a huge work of research. And when we work with external partners, and this is a gray area, kind of. When we work with external partners, we can ask them if they're using GPT. We can give them some directions, but we don't really know what is happening over there. I mean, we know because we trust our partners when they say no. But technically, if a copywriter was looking for inspirations, would we know this for sure? There's no way to. It's just building great trust with your partners to avoid that they break the regulations on our behalf.
Hey, Carlo, what are you doing around storyboarding? Can you go back to that for a moment? I kind of wanted to sort of pick up, because you mentioned that. I don't know if I understand how you would do storyboarding, use AI for storyboarding. Can you talk about that?
It's an example. We don't, so I haven't done it personally quite yet, but on a tool like Midjourney, I could see that if I need to storyboard for a video ad, for example, it might be quicker and much more efficient to do if I'm able to prompt if I have a very clear idea in mind, it's going to be quicker to prompt it and get a result rather than designing it and making it. Of course, maybe it's a V1, a very V1 to have just a look and feel of it, but it's. I would imagine it to be quicker rather than have a designer have to do a 20-page storyboard.
Right.
I think it's interesting because I think a couple things. One is you are, I think, being really thoughtful about what AI can and can't do. And it's a good insight about what it looks like in a company before a large language model is hosted internally and where you have access. So I think that that's a really good insight about that, how that shift works, because it holds you back from doing things that maybe you want to lean into. I will say your case of compliance is a really interesting one, because there is a pharma company that had reached out to myself and my co-author to see whether or not we can help save their lawyers of that horrible, horrible task of having to read through all the copy and see if it's compliant or not. And our experiment's going to be, can we use a large language model to do that automatically for them and save them hundreds of thousands of dollars of thankless work. So I think there's probably more that you guys can be doing.
Hey, Rex, you want the machine to be the lawyer then? The machine's going to read it for compliance.
That's right. And it was actually their lawyer's idea, which is, please save us. We hate this part of our marketing job.
Yeah.
We hate,
I think legal,
about get rid of the
I think legal is
stuff.
going to be second most affected behind marketing. I think legal will be second most affected, right? Because listen, a lot of what an attorney challenges is, well, this is the standard stuff we put into a licensing agreement. I mean, so much that comes up. So if I could run that across the internet, I could figure it out without having to ask somebody to create it from scratch.
Well, in Greg, for my book, the thing that you signed off of when I quoted you was written by GPT-4. I said, give me a release form for a book.
Damn it. I tried to read through that.
I know an Italian
Tricky good.
startup that is doing this job, so trying to simplify the work for lawyers.
Totally. Big area.
Yeah, exactly. It's huge because searching, just understanding where in the whole, Italian law from my previous studies is pretty hefty. It's a big job. It's a tough job. So there are a lot of codes, a lot of books. So this helps you get to a point without giving you like the final definitive answer. But it's a great starting point.
I was in London last week where you are, Carlo. I was talking to Reed Smith, our attorneys there, and he was telling me that a lot of the law firms had actually predicated their business. We're way off topic here, maybe, but we had a lot of those law firms they were selling themselves based on the fact they had created a template database that made their work easier, therefore lowered the expensive cost of lawyering. So I wonder, they were maybe moving that direction. It sounds like artificial intelligence is going to make that is going to go a whole nother level of that kind of thing.
Indeed, and if on one side you might think that lawyers don't want their paychecks to be cut, on the other side, a company that is quick in using this technology and in adopting it and in rolling it out can get more job, can improve the volume of the business. So more clients, more opportunities.
Yeah. Hey, Carlo, who else? You mentioned Midjourney using ChatGPT. What else have you seen out there that's interesting? Anything else you're experimenting with? Any vendors? Anybody you brought in house yet? Or hire? That you're working with?
In house, not yet, but I believe that there is a great space in text to video. I'm very excited to see so far where the new developments are going to be. Just because at that stage, literally the storyboarding piece is I'm just using that example that we used. It's something that's going to take it to a completely different level. And I think it was Runway, the one that we saw, and it's really impressive. It's really impressive, despite being not able to maybe create a full movie quite yet by itself. And this, I don't want to go out of topic, but it's interesting to understand also that this morning I received a newsletter that the writers' strikes in Hollywood has ended because they reached on an agreement on how AI can be used in terms, or should be used when it's about the work over there. And in these terms, I believe it's interesting because, well, Hollywood is the peak of the creativity, as we might intend, if we want to say this. So it's they're setting definitely a trend, and they're setting a precedent. And I'm curious to understand if also in the rest of the creative universe, advertising, for example, music, something like this, we will get to some regulations for it.
Yeah, it is interesting to see how voice actors are handling this, because it's okay for one human to imitate another human and to do voice imitation, but several of them are not very comfortable with AI doing that. I am working with a marketer who did pay a human to be able to license her voice so that they could then make a synthetic version, and they can type in anything they want that voice to say and create the ads, and it creates a lot more speed and efficiency. So I think that's probably the model that I would encourage most marketers to pursue, which is to get a human actor, pay them the royalty or rights basically to license the voice. Maybe it's a fixed cost, but then you can synthetically use it for X period of time. But I wonder for you, I mean, as I think about where you're at in your journey, it seems like the next steps are to, in-house a large language model, and then to where you can then open up more use cases. It also sounds like there are boring parts of the job where you feel like you could get the first draft done with AI. And then there's a part where humans are elevated and given more time to focus on, which is that creative, groundbreaking idea. Is that kind of how you're thinking about it, or would you approach it differently as you think about your milestones of how to move this forward?
I think exactly as you said, it would be great to have something in-house so that we can work and play in a safe space, get to already an acceptable level, and build on.
What would
from
it take for you to get that approved there?
Well, this goes way above and beyond my pay grade. I mean,
Yeah, but what do you get?
Greg's offering to make some calls, I think.
But this, exactly, I can do that. Yeah, and listen, you got
good
a
at
senior
that.
executive on one of my boards. But I think though, Carlo, the question I kind of listen. This is another funny time in the world, right? Same as what happened back in the internet space when the kids ran the world, right? We all jumped up. There was a bunch of us. I was young at the time when the internet came around. Certainly young in the business for the authority and the responsibility and the seniority that I had back at Young Rubicam. But so the company needs to count on, young people like you, not the old gray hairs, to go drive the thing. So I mean, they're not gonna make the recommendation. So how would you, do you think you could do that? What would you do?
Well, I think that, if there are two things. One is the cultural bit that needs to have a strong change also. So I cannot be the only one, but the whole marketing department and even higher, also our CEO is advocating for innovation also in this sense. So everybody has a very big appetite for innovation. And it's quite extraordinary to say, because it's very far away from a pharma environment. It's actually very, very exciting. So there needs to be lobbying at those levels. And then we need to deliver some good work, some safe work, considering also like limiting as much as possible the level of hallucinations that technology can have right now, and deliver some great work in tests. I think that if we are able to deliver a great test and that drives results, everybody then is going to follow up on it. And that's what I've seen. It's like you have to test something maybe in the background, maybe not advertising too much, but then when it brings results, and everybody wants to jump on the wagon, and everybody wants to follow up, and then we have to make it available for everyone. So bring a successful test home, I would say.
Yeah. How far away do you think you are from doing that? Do you have a sense of that?
Well, we are in conversations to do some tests here and there, and I don't think we are very far from it. Of course, it depends also what very far means. Is it a quarter? Is it half a year? Is it it's not very far from my conception. Might not be the same for the technology, because we might approve something in 3-6 months that is already obsolete, because given the speed that technology goes.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting as you describe the need to do a use case and have success. I do think if I were to go through a sequence, I'd say, obviously bringing it in-house to where you feel that safety parts, you to get rid of that barrier. And then there are some really quick wins around knowledge management. So all the marketing materials that you already have, when someone says, oh, do we have something that says this? Do we have something that says that? Vector database. Just type it in and and then there's no hallucination because it's referencing the documents you already have. So I would encourage you to think about that as a next use case. And then the other one, which really Greg's been a big advocate of at MMA Global, is doing the consortium for AI personalization. Humans in the loop, you're approving the creative, but then the AI is running the
Carlo,
ads.
are you doing advertising?
That's a good one.
Carlo,
Myself,
you doing advertising?
No, not specifically, but we do advertising. So my team that works with advertising,
Sorry, Rex,
advertising,
I spoke over you. I
email.
didn't mean to do that.
No, perfect. But I think that those are become the really quick wins. And then on the time saving side, I think you're absolutely right. This is going to be a time saver for the stuff that people don't like to do anyway. And being able to look at your human workflow and then the AI side by side and seeing how much time did we reduce, how much cycle time go to market.
And it's interesting you're mentioning that, and I agree with you, the successful test shouldn't be brought on a shiny campaign on something super sexy and amazing to be watched, but something on very operative that goes in the background. It's, the richest families in the world are not the ones that do, the real tycoons are the ones that maybe are working with iron or like raw materials that you never think about. So is that work in the background that really delivers the speed? And then you can have all the shiny, we did, actually Sanofi won their first bronze lion last year with a shiny activation, shiny if we want to call it. It's we went into the gaming space, so quite innovative. We hired some, for some gastrointestinal problems. Gamers usually have a terrible diet, so we hired their moms. We created their mom's avatar in their games, and the moms were scolding them where the gamers were live playing and saying, you should take this because... And it had the right amount of fun, right amount of cringe to be successful. But besides that, which is the tip of the iceberg, I think that the real groundwork that can deliver a successful test and is the one that takes away a lot of time that saves a lot of time for the legal team, for the regulatory team, and then we can focus on something else, or just, well, that's my very personal way of thinking, but just not fill the day with 1,000% productivity, but just live a life in a bit of a more free way.
Love it. Hey, Rex, should we get to the little lightning round question here with Carlo? What do you think?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
so
what do we got here?
So the question we always like to ask is, what's the most overhyped part of AI today?
Yeah.
Those posts on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok where they say how AI sees a girl from Colombia or a man from Italy. I mean, so the stereotypical, the creation without thinking. So I think that AI is not very overhyped. I think it's the way that some people are using it is like setting a lower bar. So, and it's cheap, and AI, it's actually extraordinary in all its part. I think it's very extraordinary in all its part. It's just that such a usage is not very, doesn't bring anything back to, it doesn't give anything to the world. I don't know if you've seen those carousels, how AI thinks about cultures and people, and it's all based on stereotypes.
Indeed, that's a good one. So what's the most underappreciated thing that you've seen in marketing and AI, to flip it around?
Well, the least appreciated thing. That's a very good question. The support, well, the least appreciated thing is that if you're a creative agency, or if you anyone that works in creativity or in marketing ideas, you should use it as a base for what not to do, because it works as a base. And I'm not sure I've never had many. Haven't heard many people doing it. So using AI as a control group that allows you to work to make things better.
Got it. Okay, last one here. If you could have AI do any part of your job, presumably the part of the job that you like least, what would you have AI do for you if it could do anything?
Well, do my expenses, my bills.
I like that one.
I actually do think there is an AI solution for that. Actually, that's very funny. My God, you went right to the heart of what we all hate the most.
Yeah, it's that part of admin that is very, very, very boring, and but anyway.
Okay, well, there's an invite, Rex. I think there's an invite for somebody to write in, or at least put on chat here, like an expense AI-driven solution to eliminate the time and energy of that.
I'll pay with my
right?
bucks. I'll pay it with my bucks. I don't have to bill it to Sanofi.
You'll do it yourself? Is that-
Purchase, yeah.
Yeah. That's actually very funny. I love it. Okay. Well, listen, Carlo, we can't thank you enough for doing this, my friend. You're a good man. We appreciate you joining, MMA's AI Leadership Council, or Coalition, I should say. We're going to get you very involved. I think we definitely want you for, I don't know what you signed up for, but, we'll definitely get you in a content, creative thing. And I think it's a good opportunity for all of us to learn from each other here. I mean, listen, it's all moving so fast.